Richard Rawlings entered the courtroom on a cool September morning, wearing the same confident smirk fans remembered from Fast and Loud. Yet when the judge announced the sentence, something shifted. His legs trembled. The man who once bragged about million-dollar deals and flipping Mustangs collapsed, grabbing the rail as cameras snapped. The so-called king of cars had built his empire on something darker, and the truth stunned the room into silence. Security stepped in while Rawlings lowered his eyes, walking out in custody. That was the moment America's most trusted car guy turned into its most wanted. But what pushed Richard Rawlings from hero to handcuffs? That Dallas sun was burning hot when Rawlings first stepped into a dusty garage, staring at broken windshields and rusted frames as if they were hidden treasure. That day marked the start of Gas Monkey Garage. If you ever watched Fast and Loud, you remember Rawlings leaning over engines, making calls with confidence, while his team rushed to meet impossible deadlines. It looked like the American dream, wrapped in high-definition shots and rock music. Born in 1969, Richard had flipped cars long before TV came calling, claiming to have sold thousands. Those sales opened the doors to a bar, a restaurant, and later a music venue, creating a small empire fueled by motor oil and barbecue. When Fast and Loud premiered in 2012, it became one of Discovery Channel's top automotive shows for 8 years, drawing millions who loved the thrill of junkyard cars turning into six-figure auctions. Rawlings played his role well. Flashy shirts, classic Mustangs, and a grin that made him look untouchable. And for a while, he was. Gas Monkey grew, his Instagram filled with jets and cheering crowds, and his brand stretched into restaurants, merch, and even deer. He partnered with Dodge, showed up at SEMA, and became the face of the fast-moving American hustle. The image was clear. Work hard, move quick, and you too could live that life. But behind the glamour, his crew pushed through brutal hours that TV rarely showed. The question lingered. Did anyone truly know Richard Rawlings? On camera, he was all high fives, parties, and last-minute deals, but the reality was less shiny. After Fast and Loud ended in 2020, his empire struggled. The Gas Monkey Bar and Grill closed, fan energy slowed, and Richard tried to reinvent himself with a YouTube channel and smaller car projects that lacked the drama of the show. He stayed visible, still flipping, still talking big, but without the show's spotlight, criticism grew. Fans began to wonder how much of Fast and Loud had been real, and whether cars rushed for TV deadlines held up under real scrutiny. Forums whispered about unpaid bills and questionable business calls. The king of cars' image began to crack. Then came the viral rumor. TikToks and YouTube shorts claimed Rawlings had been sentenced over a Mustang scandal. The story was false, but people believed it because his polished TV persona no longer matched the struggles behind the brand. Richard Rawlings sold the dream of turning rust into gold, yet the reality of the car business meant tough numbers, taxes, and legal forms that never made for good TV. Which brings us back to the real question. How did America's most trusted car guy become the internet's most wanted? The answer started with a tax audit. In spring 2023, an IRS agent opened a folder with Richard's name on it, expecting another routine check on a high-profile entrepreneur. But what they uncovered revealed cracks no editing room could hide. But the numbers told a story the lifestyle could not explain. An expense line for restoration parts looked too polished, and a custom Mustang sale carried something strange in its VIN. At first glance, it seemed like a typo, one letter off, maybe a number flipped. Yet when investigators ran the VIN through federal databases, the record failed, flagged as non-existent. This wasn't just paperwork with the wrong digit, it was a vehicle tied to a car that never officially existed. The vehicle had been showcased as a rare Mustang build, painted in bright metallic blue, rolled into car shows where crowds snapped photos, and shared online with captions celebrating a six-figure flip. Fans remembered Richard behind the wheel, revving the engine and grinning, promising this was the car destined to break auction records. Meanwhile, the IRS teamed with the Department of Transportation and state offices to cross-check Richard's transactions. The deeper they searched, the more inconsistencies surfaced. Cars that should have required emissions tests and registration fees had no records, and expenses filed as business deductions appeared without receipts linking to the flashy builds on his channels. One casual YouTube shop tour added fuel to suspicion. Under bright lights, the Mustang shined while Richard laughed with his crew, pointing out the next project. But when investigators froze the footage and examined the VIN plate on camera, it failed to match any restoration paperwork registered in Texas. That single detail pulled investigators deeper, revealing the car was likely built from a salvaged shell. Still, the paperwork told a different story, filed under another title to bypass fees and avoid inspections required for high-value builds. The same Mustang once celebrated across social media became the thread that started unraveling the empire. Quietly, the IRS launched a federal case into suspected tax fraud, focusing on gas monkey holdings, merchandise revenue, and international income that might not have been properly reported. A trail of money tied to overseas auctions and private collectors raised more doubts about whether export and customs paperwork had been filed correctly. For years, Rawlings claimed he flipped hundreds of cars every year, but the audit revealed gaps, missing documents, and incomplete records where federal law required precision. Behind closed doors, investigators pieced together every transaction, every transfer, and every clip where a VIN tag appeared on screen. They pulled from YouTube, Fast and Loud episodes, and Instagram Reels, matching timestamps against invoices Richard's companies had submitted. What began as a routine audit turned into a federal investigation. Agents visited auctions, tracked down buyers, and dug through records that Rawlings never expected would resurface. The man who once spun rust into gold now faced a world where every missing receipt could bring a new charge. The king of cars, once seen lighting cigars and joking while unveiling builds, was now under heavy federal scrutiny. That Mustang with the fake VIN had become the symbol of a system collapsing from the inside. But hidden behind locked doors was something even his closest allies never expected. The secret wasn't online. It sat inside a part of the Gas Monkey warehouse staff called the cage. To most visitors, it looked like a cluttered storage space, stacked with old panels, carburetor crates, and boxes marked with handwritten labels. But investigators uncovered a false wall, hiding what they later described as a small industrial-grade forgery lab. The audit that started with one fake VIN had led straight to this hidden room.
They entered with a warrant on a humid morning, stepping past racks of dusty rims and cracked tiles until they reached a locked steel door. Inside sat laser etching machines, blank VIN plates, and printers able to make registration stickers sharp enough to fool inspectors. On a scratched bench lay folders of VIN data pulled from salvage yards, matched with ledgers that mapped which numbers would be assigned to which builds. This was no restoration. It was identity theft on wheels. Frames with shady pasts, flood-soaked shells, and even stolen cars were reborn inside that cage with new names, polished as clean classics fit for auction. They appeared to be rare finds, complete with matching numbers that buyers trusted without doubt. The system ran so smoothly that agents later reported how single VINs moved across 3 or 4 states before reappearing in Texas under a brand new title, ready for sale with Gas Monkey's stamp of credibility. What shocked investigators further were the testimonies of former employees who had long stayed silent, thinking the cage was just shop business. One technician recalled being told, "Grind off the old, let the new plate talk," believing it was standard procedure. Another admitted seeing stacks of cash exchanged after hours when private collectors came for specific builds, no paperwork in sight. Even Richard's YouTube videos unknowingly captured the operation. In one late-night clip, Richard guided viewers around the shop, joking about secret projects we can't show yet, while the camera briefly caught the reinforced door. Fans thought it was a tease, but investigators saw keypad locks and heavy hinges already flagged in whistleblower photos. And this was no side hustle. Reports confirmed more than 50 cars passed through the system in just 2 years, with profits climbing into the millions. On-camera builds carried paperwork that looked clean, but off-camera projects were funneled through the cage, keeping the scheme hidden in plain view. That cage became the control room of a revenue stream, untaxed, unreported, and unquestioned by buyers who trusted the Gas Monkey name. It was this discovery that brought prosecutors in, turning Richard Rawlings from the king of cars into the subject of a federal case far bigger than a single fake Mustang. The reputation built on flash and fast deals collapsed under evidence pulled from that hidden space, where myth clashed with law. The scheme reached its breaking point with one betrayal inside the shop, an insider who delivered the last piece investigators needed. The ultimate betrayal began when a European collector, who had searched for years for an authentic Shelby GT500, believed he finally found his dream car inside Gas Monkey garage. Richard personally walked him through the shining silver body and spotless engine, weaving stories of heritage and American roads. A handshake sealed the deal, a photo hit Instagram, and the collector wired $1.2 million to secure what he thought was a legend. Instead, he bought a ghost. The VIN was fake, the documents forged, and the car's past buried beneath layers of chrome and marketing. When he tried to register the car at home, Customs flagged the paperwork, sparking a diplomatic call that crossed the Atlantic. That call turned the collector into a whistleblower, providing emails, receipts, and recordings that revealed how trust had been weaponized, turning fans into victims. And that betrayal gave prosecutors the final key they needed to open every locked door around Richard Rawlings. But how could he keep it hidden for so long? The TV show Weapon held the answer, disguised in plain sight, broadcast weekly to millions. Fast and Loud was more than a car show. It was a marketing engine. Each episode staged the hunt for rare cars, the stress of deadlines, and the thrill of roaring engines under shop lights. It all felt authentic, and that illusion was the point. In one episode, Richard proudly showed off a Mustang, talking about heritage and authenticity as though the camera was a confessional. Meanwhile, behind the cameras, those VIN numbers weren't always what they appeared, and the paperwork spun tales that never touched real roads. Each episode doubled as a pitch. Every barn find acted as a funnel, and fans who trusted Rawlings' charm stepped into a carefully staged world where TV drama and real business blurred. Every segment became evidence, every find was partly fabricated, and the entire show turned into a shield that let Rawlings gain the trust of viewers eager to believe. As ratings climbed, so did the demand for cars moving through Gas Monkey Garage, giving cover to transactions that later fueled his downfall. When the truth surfaced, the empire collapsed overnight. The collapse began after more than a decade where Gas Monkey Garage had ruled car culture, attracting millions with roaring engines and impossible deadlines under hot lights. Yet within 72 hours, the empire Richard spent years building was stripped away. It started on a collector's forum, where one post exposed receipts that didn't match the supposed history of a Shelby GT500. The VIN tags, the timelines, and even the documents Richard once flashed on camera now sat under a harsh spotlight. By that same afternoon, forums turned into digital archives of paused episode frames and auction photos. Viewers rewatched clips, freezing shots to compare chassis stamps and paperwork with public records that painted a very different story. Industry insiders who once begged for Gas Monkey collabs suddenly backed out. Auction houses flagged cars tied to the brand. Discovery, once Rawlings' biggest stage, erased banners within 24 hours and issued a short statement distancing itself while reviewing content strategy. Sponsors who had built campaigns around Richard's loud Texas bravado quietly scrubbed logos from websites and deleted promotional posts. Meanwhile, in the collector market, cars tied to Gas Monkey dropped in value almost instantly. Buyers called each other, demanding paperwork and checking welds and hidden frame stamps themselves. Some uncovered mismatched numbers, realizing their prized investments were worth far less than believed. Others discovered liens attached to vehicles they thought were fully theirs. The market rippled, collectors scrambled, and trust eroded. In less than 3 days, an empire built over years crumbled under receipts, timestamps, and paused video stills. It felt as though the car world finally woke up, pulling away the Instagram filters and facing the truth. Gas Monkey Garage was built not only on smoky burnouts and slick edits, but on a foundation cracking beneath simple scrutiny. And for Richard, the worst blow was personal. Every frame of Fast and Loud that once built his legend was now tearing it apart. When the dust settled, Richard's downfall was more than one man's story. It became a mirror for an industry fueled by shiny chrome and hidden flaws. The lesson was brutal. Trust once traded for fame can never be restored, and the ripple will echo across the car world for years. The real question now is chilling. Which other TV personalities might be hiding secrets in plain sight?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, subscribe, and tab the bell icon so you never miss our next video.